Hello and welcome into the KE Report. I'm your host, Shad Markwitz, and today we're getting an update on Scottie Resources. Scottie is traded on the TSX.V under the ticker SCOT and on the OTCQB under the ticker SCTSF. I'm joined today with the president and CEO of Scottie Resources, Brad Rourke. And Brad, great to get you back on the show as always, especially when it's to talk about a maiden resource at the Scottie Gold Project. And so a lot to get into here. The biggest thing, I guess the key takeaway is that you've got this resource out, 703,000 ounces of gold. Now, some of that is a mix between the underground component and two shallow pits at surface. This is a big milestone for the company, and it's a high-grade resource. It looks to be an economic resource. I know we'll be talking about wrapping some economics around it a little later on, but just from a high level for people taking a look at this resource, what are the main takeaways you want investors to have?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I think, long time coming. We're happy to finally get this out. We anticipated having this out a couple months ago, but it was back and forth with trade-off studies, and really it was a function of quality or quantity. And, we might have been able to get a bigger headline number, but we chose to go with the number that financially makes sense and then how we would actually mine this because this is the whole reason we weren't rushing an MRE, but we really motivated to get an MRE out more so we can actually put a PEA together for this resource with the DSO model in mind. So, we kind of had to pick which one made the most sense. I think the 700,000 ounce made the most sense. And you're right, it's a mix between some high grade open pit and then two underground scenarios, one at Scottie and one at Blueberry. So nice to get that behind us. Already working on that PEA and, get to the gist of it and the economics of what we have here. So internally, we're very happy. And after putting that out, I think, I was projecting to the market that I was targeting a bigger number, but I haven't had much pushback on that, so I feel good from that aspect as well.
Well, and let's break down a little bit of the nuances in it too, as far as the mix between the underground, which is at 528,000 ounces, averaging 8.7 grams per ton gold, and then the shallow pit constrained resources, 174,000, 3.2 grams per ton. I was mentioning to you off mic, when you think about most open pit projects, they're at 1 gram or zero point 0.3 grams or zero point 0.5 grams. So to have 3.2 grams per ton gold is a very high grade open pit. But you mentioned you could probably substantially increase that using ore sorting.
Correct. And so, we put out that ore sorting, phase one ore sorting study 3 weeks ago. And correct, there's a nice little upgrade that we can do with that open pit material. So before we ship it, and with that 3.2 grams, we certainly can more than double that from a grade perspective quite efficiently. So I've got a crew going up right now, actually, or in the next week or so up north to do the phase two on the ore sorting study because the numbers were so great. But you're right, that 3.2, and then you run it through the ore sorting, you're shipping a very high grade material that would be double that, if not almost triple that. Almost triple. I anticipate we can get 8, 9 grams out of that open pit, which is very profitable. So, and then with the underground, one of the surprises, we have some things that we were happy with and things that you're unhappy with. And I'm sure everybody doing their first MREs has the same thing. But, the underground at Blueberry surprised us. It's a little bit higher than we anticipated. And, the underground at Scottie, we feel a little jilted, but, that's the rules on how this goes. We think we can add ounces at Scottie, just need a little bit more drilling. We just didn't get credit for a whole bunch of historic stuff that we were hoping to get. And that's the rules, and I believe in the rules. So at least now that we've picked a lane for the underground, we know how to drill it, or we will drill it in accordance to how we would mine it. And so that should make things a little bit easier for us too, rather than just, trying to add ounces everywhere that we can. So now that we've picked the lane, yeah, I mean, through ore sorting, you look at what's going to happen here, and we'll have that PEA out hopefully before the end of the year. And then we can look at the economics of even what we have just on the 700,000 ounces. We're going to do a big program this summer. So we'll add ounces.
Well, let's dig into that just a little bit further before we dive into the potential economics and development scenario, just from a resource standpoint, if you do the follow-up drilling, like you say, now you've picked a lane, so you've got a model and you looked at the different trade-off studies to come up with this. Anytime the companies put out a maiden resource, you have to pick a strategy and a model. And once you understand how the block model is going to work and you know how you can do the follow-up drilling, were there areas where you think it'd be pretty easy to tighten up the drill spacing to bring ounces in that maybe weren't included or were orphaned or maybe were being treated as waste? How would that look as far as a follow-up drilling to expand the resources?
That's a great question, and one I have a good answer for it. Yes, because we're so under drilled. What I'd really like to emphasize is just for Blueberry Scottie, it's approximately 55,000 meters in total that we drilled. One of the things when we were just discovering the Blueberry, we were drilling from the andesite side into the siltstone side. And we just assumed for the first few years that the mineralization just petered out on the siltstone. And then we're running out of drill areas and we're backing up on the mountain. So we started drilling that contact from the siltstone side. And so what we found is that we were kind of shortchanging ourselves. The ounces on the siltstone side are perhaps way better than we initially thought. So now knowing that, and you're right, by picking a lane, we're going to drill this completely different. The aspects of the drills will be totally different. So I think adding ounces is not going to be initially on, especially on those pits. As we go to this indicated exercise, which is the next exercise, of course, this summer, we'll also be able to add ounces because what's waste right now on the siltstone side, I believe, will add ounces for sure. And then, it's about connecting shapes when you look at these models, and our spacing still, 50 meters or approximately, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, but yeah, we think we can add ounces and connect shapes where we were, you're always arguing back and forth with the resource modelers. They were a pleasure to deal with. But yeah, I think we're under drilled and to come up with that resource with that little amount of drilling and that little, we're founding ounces at Blueberry as it is right now for under $30 an ounce. And now that we picked a lane, we are going to be able to add ounces to this as well. So there'll be an updated MRE in a year's time or something like that for sure.
Okay, appreciate you breaking that down, and I'm sure that some of the categories will jump up too as far as moving from inferred to indicated as you tighten it up. And then you do have the historic drilling as a guide map in the Scottie Gold Mine area that if you wanted to, you could put some holes in there and easily beef up that area as well. I think another point that's worth reiterating, Brad, for folks listening in, is that this is a permitted project. And so when you also looked at the layout of the open pits versus the underground, that came into play. But it's so important because there's a lot of companies out there that put out maybe even a larger resource, but they're 3 to 5 years away from getting a permit if they can even get a permit. So maybe speak to that angle of the company.
Sure. So yeah, you're right. I mean, if I would have went the headline number and made a much bigger open pit at Blueberry, we would have, achieved a bigger headline number. But you see that we've kind of went with two smaller pits, starter pits, so to speak. That is a function of that permit that we have in hand, and we don't want to disrupt anything. And as we interpret, and we have consultants working on this for us. Yeah, we think that that is the most efficient way that if we were to turn rocks into dollars, we'd be one of the fastest companies out there without triggering an EA process. So that's why we went with it's all about, not to bore everybody, and even don't really understand it. We've got the consultants working on it, but it's about surface disturbance and such like that. So we went with the most economical way, highest profitable way. And those two little pits, if we get at those first, means they're very profitable and potentially, very little dilution in the future because we can monetize those. So those are the things we'll be working on this summer. And yeah, so we're quite happy working with our consultants and the permitting side and the environmental side and go, yeah, I think this works. And so now you hold your breath and start presenting this stuff to governments. But we're feeling pretty comfortable that we've done the proper work and that we're right on the money. So.
Well, let's also talk about the money since you're right on the money, and that is looking at some economics, Brad, as far as a preliminary economic assessment. I mean, your point all along has been to show the high-grade nature of this deposit, that it was permitted, but then also that it would be easy to develop and put into production, especially in this high gold price environment. And so you're looking at the DSO, which just for people listening in, that's the direct ship ore method, where you would take this and use your tidewater access and water access to be able to ship it anywhere you want to a smelter and have it refined. So let's talk a little bit about the upcoming PEA and the work that would need to happen to develop that DSO model. And that would also include the ore sorting that you've been talking about. So wrap that together into what the outlook is for the PEA.
Okay, so our goal is to have a PEA out on the DSO model by the end of the year. One thing to note, and I can't emphasize this, we're like the second closest mine on the planet Earth, as close as we are to a deep water shipping facility, the Stewart bulk terminals. If you look at Skeena and you look at Bruce Jack, they're driving hundreds of kilometers to get to that same port, which I'm just 40 kilometers down a mining road. So really, really easy access to a shipping lane to China. And that's kind of why we went with, quality over quantity on the resource numbers, because that's how we can come up with that PEA, and we'll come up with an NPV this year based on that. So it looks pretty exciting from us onset. Just stay tuned. But when you're shipping high grade material just 40 kilometers, it's only $31 a ton to go from Stewart to one of the smelters in Asia. That's it's even hard for me to conceptualize that. I mean, you get these things on a Handymax, and it cost me $20 a ton just to drive it 40 kilometers down the road, and $31 a ton to get it to China from Stewart. So the economics look really exciting at this point. I mean, please stay tuned, and just who's doing all my economic studies is Kevin Jennings. So we're in really good hands there. I don't think many junior mining exploration companies have a guy like that walking us through how this works. So, that I'm really excited for. And that's why we didn't rush the MRE, but we decided about a year ago going, well, we can't do a PA without an MRE, let's get this going. But it's actually the PEA that we're really excited to show. And then does that move us from an exploration company to a development company? And then if you look at development companies across the board, are just being treated way differently than exploration companies. And so we're really, going to fight our way to get into that development category, and if we come out with an NPV, and from what we see is, they're getting zero point 0.7 NAV for developers. So that's how we're going to try and add value if we're kind of orphaned out there, and we're going to fight our way into a different category. So people just compare us differently. The economics on this, I think, are going to be very exciting for people. And there's a lot of people doing napkin math right now, and it's good, right? It's there's no question it's good because of the quick timeline to being able to turn rocks into dollars.
Yeah, Brad, you must be a mind reader. I was just going to ask you, so are you becoming a developer now instead of just an explorer? So that's definitely the direction the company is moving, and faster than I was anticipating, and probably faster than a lot of people were anticipating, as far as a lot of companies will draw out the resource building phase over many years and then the studies over many years. And you've already got your eye on direct shipping the ore, and that is cheap to once you get it down there to the port, that is very cheap to ship it over to China. But you do have other options in the Golden Triangle, and I'm sure there's some people with this question. You've already tested your ore at Bruce Jack that you brought up, operated by Newmont, and then you've also tested it at the premium mine operated by Ascot. But do you think that any of those that could have been potential suitors are going to see this direct ship ore model and say, hey, whoa, 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 before you ship it out, we want to keep it in the Golden Triangle? Is that still on the table as an option?
It is at this moment. And yes, of course, one of the reasons we're doing this is for exactly that reason. I mean, Newmont, we went through Pretium to Newcrest and Newmont, and they're so busy. I mean, I know they're aware of us, and then the Ascot, they've kind of had a change of management now, and it's just too up in the air. And for us to sit around and wait is not something that's good for our shareholders, and we're there to support and help. We want the Ascot, the premier mill to get going. But, one of the things we're working on right now is not painting ourselves into a corner and not have that ability. But that's up to them. And at this moment, Ascot is not turning, and they've got a lot of issues to work out. I do believe they're going to work those out. I think, they've got very dedicated shareholders that are keeping that project going. And, we're kind of the two bigger employees in the town of Stewart. And I got my nose to the grindstone here. They're working really hard right now. So I think those are still on the table. It's just by us doing this exercise, we get to price our ore because we just sit there and look at this $40 million market cap with a bunch of cash in the bank. We're going, it just doesn't make sense. So by doing this DSO model, PEA, and putting together, we put a price to the ore, and I think it's about valuation and then ability. Ascot right now is probably not the right timing for them. Newmont, in a perfect world, they'll just come in and swoop up and go, well, we're not going to let somebody else take it. But, those are things that we hope that to happen, but that's in their court. And this is just another step where we just qualify what we have. And so we'll see what happens here in the next little bit. But yeah, I think they're not off the table. I think that open pit material would be really good for that premier mill. It's just how do you do it right now? I mean, it's just a little bit chaos for them, and we're just probably one step behind where they would love that. If I had that ore for them this year, we might have a little bit more negotiating power. So I think these are things that are being thought about, and we'll see how it ends up here in the next little while.
I appreciate you breaking that down. I just wanted to remind people that you do have options, but obviously, if you can blaze your own trail with the direct shipping ore method, then you don't really need to wait and be dependent on other mines. If they want to play ball, like you say, you'll have underpinned the value of the ore and what you can do it for, and they'd have to make a better offer. But I think people will be excited to see you moving forward with your own path. And it actually is a logical path. It's a great way to do it, to upgrade the ore and then ship it over to China, make it happen because of the access that you have. That just speaks to the strength of the infrastructure. One other thing I'd like to bring in, though, is just the high insider ownership. So, Brad, when you're doing this, you've got a big stake in Scottie, as do a lot of the key stakeholders. So you're also looking at what's best for the shareholder. So maybe just speak to this is the method that you think is the best path forward.
Well, what this does, however this ends up, this puts a price on our ore, and it's got to be a lot higher than our market cap today. We are committed to that, and we believe that. And if you just look at our insider buying in Q1, we've been on blackout as we've been working on this MRE, but I swear I'd never buy another share. I mean, I'm 10 years into this. I'm well over $1 million of my children's money into it. And it's not the money that I'm more concerned about. It's the 10 years of my life. But I am committed to the shareholders. I am committed to my stake. And we are very pleased or blessed with the quality of the shareholders we have in a lot of bigger positions. So they're rooting us on. And yeah, I mean, I'm a shareholder and I bought my shares. I did not start this company. I took it over as a shareholder. And so, yeah, I think I'm aligned with the shareholders. And, if anyone wants to do that due diligence, I think it's quite obvious. I pay multiple people more than me on this project, but yeah, I'm committed. I think it's been quite a learning experience for me. It took way longer than I thought, but I haven't lost enthusiasm. And I was right on the macro side of the gold price. I'm scratching my head like everybody else, how equities are just not correlating with the actual gold price. But I look into the future. I still think gold holds where it is, and maybe even goes up higher, and that just helps with all the economics. And again, short path to turning rocks into dollars with Scottie. That's what it offers. You'll see some exciting things here in the future. I'm going to add some bench strength, some mining expertise onto the roster, and just show people that we are going ahead. Make no mistake, the train's moving forward, and we'd love people to jump on, and I think eventually we'll do well.
Well, Brad, as we wrap up and as the train is moving forward, give investors listening in just a quick synopsis of, bring it all together here. What is the news flow on tap for the balance of the year that you want investors focused on?
Sure. So I think, there's a low snow year, which is a big blessing for us. I have people going up to site in the near future, like next week, kind of get equipment ready, get going. I believe we could be full on drilling in June if we can get the teams together. You'll see for news flow, we haven't released our drill program yet, but I did put in that news release that it'll be one of our biggest. And so, yeah, last year I kind of, the market wasn't there and I held back. I only did 10,000 meters last year because I was waiting for the market. I cannot wait another season. I think now I wish I would have did 20,000 meters last season, but I preserved the money and we're going into this season with the most money we've had in our treasury. We'll do a big program. You're going to see us hiring some team members that are more aligned with mining, and so we'll have me making decisions that wouldn't be good for even my shares. And so a robust program, and the drills are turning, and it's not long now, 5 6 weeks. We'll have a full cruise up there. So yeah, I think you can look for the news flow for the next few months. Then, of course, we'll have 3 4 drills going this year, and PEA before the year end. Or I really get hesitant on putting timelines on anything right now because I honestly believed I would have had that MRE for March 1st, and here we are into May. So, but that's our goal. We're going to work hard towards it. I don't see any reason right now that we won't be able to get that PEA out on the DSO model by the end of the year. So yeah, a little bit of news coming. Gold price is doing well, and the economics on this, even at the 700,000 ounces, is going to look very, very exciting.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there for today, Brad. But thanks for coming on and breaking down the Maiden Resource Estimate, the path forward towards the PEA, the direct shipping ore model, using ore sorting, and hitting the ground with the drills a little earlier this season to keep expanding infill drilling, but also, hitting some new areas or bringing areas into the resource as you continue to expand. So a lot on the go with Scottie Resources. And for those listening in, if you want to follow along with all the news flow, click on the link below in the show notes. It takes you right over to the company website, straight to their news section, so you can sign up for updates, have them hit your email inbox, or just follow along with all the news as the drills start spitting out the assays. We'll get you back on, Brad, for an update. And as always, looking forward to our next conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, Shad. You hit every point. I appreciate that. I would have missed things. So appreciate the work that you do, and I look forward to the next update.